costume party, so you have to wear a costume. But nobody better show up as the Crow. I'm serious. Every costume party, there's like 14 guys come dressed like the Crow because they want to look hot and hook up. It's lame. If you come dressed as the Crow, you're not getting into the party!
All right, welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast, and today we are going to be taking a look at The Crow, the 2024, I guess, reboot or remake of the 1994 classic starring Brendan Lee, and the 1994 classic, has a cult following because apart from it being, very, I wouldn't say very original, but very, very true in nature to the original comic, it also had a lot of, tragedies behind the scene, most notable being the death of Brendan Lee himself. So with the remake, for all of its guts and for all of its goriness, it really doesn't hold a candle to the 1994 classic. But before we dive in, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know down below if you think, The Crow 2024 was better than The Crow 1994. Not that you would think that, but just let us know in the comments below. And we are trying to grow our audience, so be sure to share this video with everybody that you know, because sharing is caring, and it does help with the algorithm. But other than that, let's go ahead and dive in. Lee, how are you doing on this fine Saturday afternoon?
After watching the new Crow, the 2024 version, it made my day worse. I was, to your point, right? I think the 1994 Crow was quick and to the point for what it wanted to do, and I think the remake had a real struggle with that because there's just so much fluff, and there's just it feels like it takes so long to get going.
I mean, you think an hour and 50 minutes wouldn't be that long, but somehow they find a way to to stretch it for some weird reason.
Yes, it absolutely felt stretched out, and there really wasn't a point to it, right? And I think I'll kind of compare a lot of what we see to the original one. So I guess hopefully, if you haven't seen the original one, this maybe kind of sparks your interest in it. But I like how the original one, everything was very much cut to the chase, right? Like you literally open up with the kind of the death of the two main characters, right? Which is Shelley and Eric. So it absolutely kind of gets right into it, right? But in the remake, there's just so much padding, and I just didn't understand why. So, like, you kind of start off and you meet this girl, Sadie, who has really no purpose to the plot. She absolutely should have just been written out, and it wasn't needed, but has this incriminating video of our antagonist, played by character's name is Vincent Rogue. And pretty much what she does is Sadie sends this incriminating video to her friend Shelley, right? So that's how Shelley gets kind of brought into the story. And we find out that Sadie's getting kidnapped, and she ends up getting murdered by this villain, right? And I think this is where I have my first big issue with this, right? In the original one, the villain is just like a douchebag, right? Like he's just like a normal person that just is hell-bent on violence, right? The villain in this, he has like special powers where like he just kind of like whispers like sweet nothings into your ear and makes you like kill yourself. And I just
he's kind of got a Faust thing going on, when you find out the backstory,
Yeah, it's such a bizarre thing, and it's such an uninteresting ability, right? Just to be able to whisper to people. It just doesn't really come across as very, like, I guess, thrilling or engaging. It's just hard to really get into that. It also makes it a lot less intimidating when your power is whispering into people's ears, right? So that to me was already putting things in the wrong place. So Shelley's trying to, I guess, and you'll have to help me with this because I watched this movie twice and I still don't understand what her logic is. So Shelley, I guess, is trying to escape or get away from these bad guys, and she like, does she intentionally run into the police station to like tell them, or did she just accidentally stumble in there? I don't know. What did you understand what was going on with her characters thinking as she went to this police station?
I honestly think she was tweaked out of her brain, dude. I mean,
Oh, my,
that's the
yep.
only thing that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Well, furthermore, if you go back when Rogue picks up the phone, or one of the henchmen picks up the phone, she's still talking on there, so they automatically know who Sadie's
Yes.
talking to. So
Mhm.
so but apparently for whatever reason they just think, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. They won't know who I am. There's absolutely no way they can trace the call back to me. and and when they do find her, she's like, oh shit, and then she like takes off. But I mean, but also keep in mind too, her purse is like basically a drugstore,
Yes.
of the
Yes.
worst kind. I mean, so if you do run into the cops, the last thing you want them to find is every drug paraphernalia under the sun, right?
Yes, it was so over the top. Like she's just like literally walking around with all these drugs just right into a police station. And it's like, there's really no like discussion about like, hey, maybe we should show the police this video of people getting killed. Like there's none of that. It's just like, nope, we're just gonna fast forward beyond this, and we're going to just have her go to this drug rehab facility. So um and actually, this is where we actually finally meet Eric, right? The Crow, like the main character. It takes us 15 minutes before we really even get there. And we see this, I'm going to say, relationship. And to me, this relationship absolutely does not get pulled off at all. I think it's
Hold on.
really unbelievable.
Lee, you're forgetting the main point here. Shelley's very easy. She'll do it with anybody. I mean, she's tweaked out of her brain.
Like I said, I have no idea about any of all that, but like it is so awkward just to kind of see this weird transition where now they're just going to have this relationship blossom, and it just makes zero sense. And then we have the like villains, right? So Rogue has like a secondhand man, well, it's a woman, but secondhand woman, right? Named Marion, and she goes to the drug rehab center to try to find Shelley. And the whole time I'm thinking about this, I'm like, the fact that she's there, you must have had like about 100 other better opportunities to kill her, right?
Don't forget. Lee, don't forget. Shelley's mom is with them too when they go into the rehab facility.
Oh, sure, whatever. Yeah, I'm not even gonna bother talking about the mom. It just gets bogged down with all the nonsense that happens. But like, you have her trying to show up here. I'm like, could you not have like found a better time to kill her? Like, if that's your ultimate plan, why go into a drug rehab center is the best time to do that? I'll never know. But Eric and Shelley decide like, hey, we need to get out of here. So Eric takes her to like the laundry room in the basement, and they're able to get out and they escape from the facility. And it must be the easiest place to get out of. Like, I just don't even understand why they show it to be so pathetically easy, because they just kind of stroll out the back and they hop over a fence and they're there to freedom. So, and this is where everything just gets so pathetically slowed down, because all we do is show this relationship between these two characters, and it's not engaging. It's not interesting. We don't care. Like, if you've seen the original one, right? The original one just cuts to the chase, right? Like, literally within the first 5 minutes, Shelley and Eric are dead, right? And I like how in the original one, they kind of sprinkle those moments, like those flashbacks throughout, right? So you kind of understand more about Eric and Shelley's relationship. In this, they want to really like just push it in your face the whole time, and it just doesn't work. What do you feel about their relationship and all the time that we spend with these two people?
I mean, Shelley's tweaked out of her brain, and she'll do it with anybody.
Okay. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't really get quite that vibe, but like I said, it definitely is not really enjoyable to watch these two characters interact. It just, it just doesn't really jive or work for me. So, but yeah, so we see them, having this nice lovey-dovey relationship. And eventually the evil people, right, they end up finding both Eric and Shelley. And in this one, they both get killed, right? So similar to the first one where they both get killed. And in this one, in the remake, right, they kind of go an extra step, right? So we see Eric gets killed, and he kind of goes to this weird purgatory world, right? I don't think they really explain it very well, but that's kind of what I'm just going to say. And he meets this spirit called Kronos, and I don't remember if they actually said it in the film at all, but just trust me, character's name is Kronos. And pretty much Eric decides, like, hey, I want to help get revenge on the people who killed Shelley, because pretty much Shelley's soul is lost in hell, right? So they try to add more backstory, and I don't know, to me, it wasn't needed. Like, I find that film sometimes they explain too much when less is more is better, right? How do you like the way the remake handled this compared to the original one, where there's not a whole lot of information given?
I mean, it just takes the mystery out of it because now it's like he's invested with the power to be the sort of instrument of God's vengeance on Earth, really. Whereas, in the 1994 original, it was more like this weird anomaly that happens, and he just happens to, be this revenant whose sole purpose is to get revenge and get closure on the people who murdered him and his girlfriend. I think with adding Kronos and with adding his mission of going to make things right, and also going after Vincent Rogue, which I thought was a really, really weird twist, because for whatever reason, I guess they decided that Kronos, has to invest Eric with the mission of, oh yeah, I mean, we're sorry you got murdered, but hey, good news, you've been selected to go and kill Vincent Rogue, because apparently he made a really, really naughty deal with the devil where he's going around whispering things into people's ears and making them kill themselves. And we need you to go and do that for us. So would you be a good boy and do that? That'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, Kronos in a way kind of reminds me of Lumbergh from Office Space in a weird way. He just goes up, he just goes up, to everybody and just like giving all these orders, like, yeah, you'll do it, and then walks off. And I have to imagine Eric is probably like, what the fuck is this?
Yes, just like the audience, right? Because I think the audience, I'm thinking the exact same thing. Like, why all this? Like, we didn't need this. There doesn't need to be an explanation for everything that's going on. Like, I think we as an audience could just accept, like, hey, this guy's on this revenge mission, right? And I think as an audience, we'd be okay with it, right? I watched the first one. I never thought, like, well, geez, how did he come back to life? This is really weird. Like, I just accepted it for what it was. I feel like the over-explaining stuff just muddled a really muddy movie even more, right? So once Eric gets resurrected, right, there's a cop that's there, and, we get introduced to his powers. And I would say for the most part, the next, like, I don't know, like 30, 40 minutes, it's just nothing but like a generic, like, revenge action sequence, except the main character is like Deadpool and could just regenerate. So it's not very interesting. The one thing I will say that's a positive, and I know we talked about this too, and this is probably the best place to talk about it. The score is a ton of fun. I really did like that. I think they did really good job with the music, and I think this is what probably at least kept my attention through a large chunk of this.
The score pretty much did all the heavy lifting, basically.
Yes, yes. It pretty much did, because there's just nothing really interesting going on with it. He's just going out there, he's killing people. Like, he, kind of remembers the people that were involved in the killing, and he's going after them. It's kind of all run-of-the-mill stuff. And then there's one stage where Eric, he starts to and I'm gonna say this is how it's described in the movie. He starts to doubt his love for Shelley because he finds out that Shelley killed somebody because of Rogue, right? So that was kind of the whole part of this was Shelley killed someone on Rogue's I guess enticement, right? Or he convinced her to do something. So then Eric started to doubt their love because Shelley didn't disclose it to him. And because of that, he stops regenerating after a while, and he goes back to purgatory, where he makes a pact that oh no, I'll trade my soul for Shelley's soul, and then he becomes a super crow. He just gets more powerful. I didn't understand that at all. What did you think?
He went super Saiyan, basically.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I was just why do we want to include this at all? His love was not totally pure. And let's not forget, these people probably knew each other for I don't know, weeks, if even that much. Right? How long could they possibly know each other? And they're trying to make this seem like it's the romance of the ages. I'm no, it's just people that are in bad situations getting together. It's something you probably see all the time, and then they just have this huge spat at the end, and they're constantly bickering and fighting with each other. It's just it doesn't do anything.
Mhm.
But I will say this, right? At least when he becomes Super Crow, right? We have this really cool sequence at the Opera House, and I would say that this is by far my favorite sequence in the movie, and probably the only thing that got me at least semi-interested in this was the action sequence, because I thought it was pretty cool. He's got a sword. He's kind of cutting through all these henchmen, and all along there's this operatic score going on in the background, and I like how somehow nobody could hear all the gunshots going on behind them, because this is literally happening in the lobby of the Opera House, but somehow nobody could hear all the gunshots going off. I know they try to show the opera singers are singing very loudly when all this stuff is happening, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna hear gunfire in this. But whatever, they did what they wanted to. And eventually Eric he finds Marion, right, the right hand woman, and ends up killing her before, but only after she tells Eric where Rogue is located. And then this is where we get the final fight, and I'm going to use that term extremely loosely because it's just nothing really happens. It's just they kind of have this, I guess, interaction, right? I wouldn't even say it's a fight actually, because Eric shows up and he lets Rogue stab him, and then I guess Rogue uses his powers of ASMR to I don't know, do something to Eric, and he tries to steal Eric's powers. But then Eric takes him to purgatory and he sends him to hell. Does that sound about right for how the ending went?
It went very, very fast,
Yes.
which is really weird, considering that this movie pretty much took a long time on stretching the pacing out on scenes that were really irrelevant to the movie.
Yes. Yeah, 100% agree. It put its focus in the wrong places. So, but yeah, so Eric kills Rogue, and Shelley ends up, I guess her soul comes out of hell. And in this version of it, right, and this is very in stark contrast to the original one, Shelley ends up being revived at the time that she and Eric were killed, right? But Eric is still dead. So in this one, and I thought it was really odd, right? Because I'm in the first one, you kind of have this really nice moment where, Eric kills everybody, and then Shelley's soul comes, and she kind of kind of releases him from his burden, right? His vengeance that he's been so much into. And it was a very, I think, nice and simple moment for them. In the remake, they make it so almost oh yeah, Eric went through all this hell, and did it really happen, or what exactly happened with it? I know Kronos shows up as one of the EMTs, But I don't know. It was really weird that you would have her survive and Eric still be dead. So I don't know. What did you feel about that change? Because I feel like that's a very significant change to the original.
I mean that right there I took tremendous issue with, because it just cheapens the entire ethos of the character, but also the whole spirit of the movie, if that makes any sense, right? Because the whole point was to try to get closure by getting revenge on the people who committed these murders, however ridiculous the and bloated the plot happened to be. The fact that Shelley gets revived, I felt like it just cheapened the entire thing, really.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and really it kind of cheapened Eric's sacrifice, because at that point it's like, well, it kind of robs him of the comfort of knowing that he and Shelley can be together in the afterlife. Because this entire time he's been doing all of this with the hope that the two of them will be together, only for her to get revived, and now he has to spend eternity in hell. And he's like, well, I guess I'll just have to live off the memories. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, like, call for what it is. You got gypped, like, plain and simple. Like,
Yeah.
they made you do all of this stuff, and you're gonna be alone, for all of eternity, while your supposed girlfriend is off living her life. Well, let's be honest, she's probably gonna find someone, probably like in a few weeks afterwards. So
Yeah, I definitely didn't get this. They spent so much time trying to develop this relationship, and by the end of it, I'm like, she's probably she's probably gonna find someone else at the end. And then I can only imagine Eric sitting in hell, being like, "Oh, damn it, why'd I do all this?" But yeah, like that was it, right? Like it just was. It just didn't really do anything well, right? I think I look back on it, and it just takes too long to get everything going. And it didn't fully commit to anything, right? In the original one, the whole thing was in this dark, brooding cityscape, right? Like it just like it kept that theme and it stuck with it the whole time, right? In this, it just felt like it wanted to teeter back and forth constantly. Like it's all very kind of like colorful at the beginning, and then yeah, after he died, it gets more dark. So I can understand through the story why it is like that, but it just doesn't, I think, convey that message very well. They linger on the most ridiculous things, like why have this character Sadie in it? It was totally not purposeful to the story. We didn't need to see Shelley and Eric's relationship prior to everything happening. It just wasn't really needed. You just focus on all the wrong things. Like, we're coming to watch The Crow, right? We think about it as this, kind of like awesome, like revenge piece where, this guy has these supernatural powers and it's interesting. But then you try to do all this other stuff with him. Having him like lose his powers after like 30 minutes of the film is really jarring to me. We've seen like movies like Spider-Man do that, but that's like after we've known the character for multiple movies. And then it's like when he loses his powers, we kind of get an understanding why. For this, it just doesn't really make sense. It was just another added element that needed to be there. And as much as I like the actor that plays Vincent Rogue, his villain is just boring. There's just nothing engaging about it. Like when your superpower is just whispering into people's ears, that's just dull and uninteresting. Like they just felt like they made a bad choice all the way through. The only things I did like was the score, which I know we talked about. I did think that did well with this, and some of the over the top violence, especially in the opera sequence, I thought was good. But for me, I don't want to watch a whole movie for a 10-minute sequence and a full soundtrack, which is all this pretty much was for me. So. But what about you, Luca? What did you think about the Crow, the remake as a whole here?
The original one from 1994 was beautiful, really. And
yes,
and when you watch that movie, you can see why it has a cult following. And it has this effect on you where you can't help but feel, a bit melancholic, a bit sad, really. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the actor who played the lead, Brandon Lee, died, very tragically in a very Rust-like, situation, really. So so having the lead actor die, in production after he shot all of the scenes, and then having this movie released in such, during a time when the grunge movement, was in full swing, it kind of just added to the whole, pessimistic, dark malaise that was the early 1990s. And anybody who was fortunate to to live at that time and to have seen the original Crow will definitely understand the kind of spell that it has on people.
Yes.
Whereas with this remake, I mean, it's essentially them trying to capture lightning in the bottle, right? What happened in 1994 was was a one-time thing only. What there all the subsequent Crow movies they made afterwards could never capture the magic and the beauty that was in the original with Brandon Lee.
And
Whereas,
the TV series.
yeah, but with the 2024 remake or reboot or however you want to call it, it's just, and we've talked about this before with other reviews. It's just Hollywood digging into the toy box because they've got nothing in there, between the ears to say, well, we've got a new idea for a movie. They're trying to, to use your phrase, they're going for the member berries. They want to see how people will feel if they, resurrected the Crow, no pun intended. But it just falls flat on its face because it just lacks the charm and the tragedy that goes with it. Not to mention too, and we mentioned this before we started recording, the actress who played Shelley, there was nothing about her that made you feel like she was worth it. She makes all these really stupid decisions, and you kind of get the feeling she's really not all there, really, as a character. But even the actress playing, or I should say the person playing her, I mean, her acting chops are kind of limited, really. I think her two main expressions are looking either scared or looking normal, which basically involves her looking stoned, with her jaw hanging out at the time. So really, it's just John Huston trying his damnedest to carry the movie on his shoulders, but even he's limited by what the director and what the script writer is telling him to do. But I mean, it's just a cheap knockoff, really. It's basically Hollywood saying, well, we've improved on the Crow and we've made it more sensitive, but as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They definitely took something that wasn't broken and they broke it.
Yes. They didn't even try to enhance in any way. At least in my opinion, not. And I would say the box office definitely agrees with everybody because I mean the 94 version is I think 4 times the box office of this remake is. So definitely has to be something there for what everyone was looking at. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much The Crow. If I had to, I would say give this some type of grade. Gosh, this was just. I'm gonna give it just maybe a 2. I'm gonna say 2 out of 5, and that might be being nice for it because outside of some of the gratuitous moments, that we've seen done just as good in other things. And I know you mentioned John Wick before, and I think that's a kind of a good comparison, right? We've seen John Wick kick ass with swords and stuff. So, even with that, it just doesn't really bring anything to the table. That was interesting. So really it's a 2. That's just from some kind of over the top fight sequences and a cool soundtrack. And that's pretty much it. So 2 crows out of 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5. And like you said, I mean, the score really does carry the load on that, because without it, it's just basically murder porn. I mean, I will say this: John Huston, bless him, he knows how to play a good villain, and even though he was playing a guy who basically is the old white male version of the Rumor from Umbrella Academy, he's still
That's
he still
good comparison.
yeah, he still finds ways to add a little bit of sneer, a little bit of sinister attitude, to that character. So I'll give him props for that. Bill Skarsgård, I mean he's basically Pennywise, but with the sword and murdering people. I don't think he knows how to play anybody else apart from creepy people. Because even though the Crow is supposed to be this heroic figure who, is trying to right the wrongs that were done to him, I'm still getting this like murderous clown vibe, and it doesn't help when he puts on the tattoo ink on his face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
No,
when he does that, it's like, okay, so basically he's a clown in a leather coat. I mean, I don't see a difference here. But yeah, I mean that's just me being generous, but it's one of those movies that I wouldn't really reach out and watch all over again. So. But yeah, go ahead and let us know down in the comments below what you think, if you thought Bill Skarsgård knocked it out of the park as the Crow, or if you prefer Brandon Lee. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.